Yo, what's good with it? We back. He's Greg. I'm your boy Robert. We are the All Out of Fucks podcast. We took a week off, but we back at you. What's good with you, man? What's going on?
Man, chilling. You know, like I said, it's been a rough week, man. Life, boy. Life
Yeah,
woke up and said, "Hey, I think I want to do something today. Yeah, let's fuck with you.
it's
Let's
usually how
just
shit
fuck
works.
with you." Yeah. So, other than that, I ain't gonna complain. But
Mm-hmm.
it's been real busy at the job and real hectic at the job, and there's been a stress test that I'm barely passing right about now. As we come out of COVID, and things starting to ramp up, and in my field, that means more events are starting to happen. So
Mm-hmm.
we went from not moving one semi to moving several at a time in a short amount of time all across the country. And you some of it's a little rust, and then some of it is dealing with the new way we have to do things. So dealing
Yeah,
with
I
that
got you.
uh dealing with that is been kind of stressful. But like I said, other than that, waiting on this Super Bowl to happen this weekend. I got no dog in the fight, but I find myself I'm kind of torn. I'm find myself kind of pulling for Joe Burrow, but then I also and I don't know why I feel that way about him. I think I feel that way about Stafford just because of what he had to endure to get to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got one guy who's a rookie and he's having a great, season coming off an injury, and that's a good story. But then you got this other guy that spent his whole career in fucking Detroit. Like,
Right.
god
Yeah,
damn.
yeah. I don't have a dog in the fight. What I will say is, I mean, it would be fun to see Cincinnati win it. You're right. Like Joe Burrow definitely, you can tell he definitely hangs out with brothers, or just he relates to brothers a lot better than a lot of quarterbacks, and it
Right.
appears to be genuine. Sometimes the shit seems forced, but you
Right.
can tell he's been around different environments. So, and part of that is just having gone to play college football in the South, and you
Mm-hmm.
can't help but let some of that rub off on you. And some of it's probably just his personality. Just might be a cool cat, like just kind of easily adapts to socializing with people, but. Um, yeah, I mean, I'll just be watching the game to enjoy the shit, see what happens. You're right, Matt Stafford. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing him win either. I mean, I don't really have a dog in the fight, but
Right.
uh,
It's
dude, Joe Burrow, I halfway expected him to have a black girlfriend or something, but I think he's with dating a white girl. But like,
he is.
I fully expected him to have a black chick. Like, I bet you he dates sisters, kind of like Travis Kelsey. But
Right.
but no, I mean, but so I mean, it's all authentic. You know what I'm saying? Not saying you gotta, in order to have swagger, you gotta date a sister. But like, I would not have been surprised if Joe Burrow popped up with uh, a black woman as his, his girlfriend, whoever he's dating. But
Yeah, I wouldn't
you
have
know,
been surprised. I just noticed that, like with Joe Burrow, here's a cat. I mean, it's just a good story. Like when they run those packages, during the pre Super Bowl show, the 6 hours before the Super Bowl, and they run all those video packages. Here's a kid that literally bet on himself. Like he was
mm-hmm,
a great high school quarterback in Ohio. He goes to Ohio State, and he winds up being like their third string quarterback.
mm-hmm.
So, you put him on the bench, you redshirt this cat for whoever you had, to try to get that national title that you didn't get. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and he says, "Fuck it, I'm gonna take my ass elsewhere." And he goes down and actually wins the fucking national title
Right.
and keeps going. Like this dude,
I mean,
he
and
like his
he
whole
he's
story is a winner.
yeah, he's skilled. I mean, like you can't deny his skill set. I mean, he's good at what the fuck he does. So, um, hey, kudos to him. I mean, shit, he didn't took the Cincinnati Bengals to the Super Bowl. So,
Team
man,
that was what 2-14 or 13,
right,
something like that. Shit.
right.
Two
So,
years ago, barely won 2 games, and 2 years
well,
later, they in the Super Bowl. So
so what are your Steelers about to do at quarterback?
something stupid. Well, actually, no.
No,
Um,
I've heard they're looking at Jimmy G.
Yeah, they're looking at Garoppolo hard. Like they're thinking, his age level and where he is as a veteran, that they can mold him a little bit into a quarterback that plays a little bit more in the pocket. Like
Mm-hmm.
literally don't make. He Jimmy G has this thing where he thinks he's Brett Favre. And I think they think they can rein that in. Now, can they do that? I don't know, but I
Yeah, we'll see.
believe that the Steelers think they can rein that in. So
Yeah, we'll see.
yeah,
I mean, I think what's smart for the Steelers, they're looking for a talented guy that they know the locker room will probably respect,
mm-hmm.
and he's not going to be super expensive. He shouldn't be, at least.
No,
And so that, I mean, they can still pick a quarterback at some point in the draft and have somebody to kind of develop and find a long term guy. But at this point, they need somebody who can throw the ball down the field. You're right,
mm-hmm.
try to minimize his mistakes,
Right.
and then just run the ball and play solid defense, and they should be all right. I mean, if Ben Roethlisberger was serviceable, they probably would have been in the, made a deeper run this year. But
Right.
so I mean, it's smart to kind of approach it that way. That's what I've heard is kind of the leading candidate for the Steelers. I mean, because the other options obviously are Aaron Rodgers, and looks like he might be ending up in Denver. Deshaun Watson, nobody knows what the fuck's happening.
I was about to say that there was rumblings. There was Deshaun, and then there was rumblings like Deshaun still probably ain't gonna hit the field based on all the stuff that he has going on. And I'm like, well, okay,
right.
so you have, and then somebody said, well, we get Russell Wilson. I'm like, well, he's too small to me to play there. Like
I don't know. I mean, he's an upgrade over whatever you got. You know what I mean? So,
he
which is
is. I'm
nothing.
not
Which is
saying he's
nothing
not,
right now.
but I'm just saying like he is. He's small. I'm used to like Steelers quarterbacks being a lot taller than that. So
yeah, honestly, I mean, I don't know what we got. I know the Colts. I would feel perfectly fine if they just got rid of Carson Wentz and went some other fucking direction, because the meltdown that motherfucker had in that last game against Jacksonville, it's just that's unforgivable.
would
So
you take Russell?
yes, absolutely, yes,
Okay.
no question. Um,
Because I think he's done in Seattle.
yeah,
He has to go somewhere.
I just don't think he's going someplace like Indianapolis. I mean, I think with Sierra being his wife, I think the Giants make sense for him, or New Orleans maybe. Uh, I mean, those really be the main options.
Who's going to be the coach in New Orleans?
I think they're looking at the defensive coordinator, promoting
Okay.
him to head coach. That's
Okay.
what I think.
Okay.
But you're right. I mean, now that Peyton's gone, maybe he doesn't think about New Orleans, but who knows where he ends up. I mean, I know there was some rumors there for a second. They're like, oh, because Aaron Rodgers was telling Pat McAfee that he would announce his decision on his show. And Pat McAfee, of course, is a big Colts guy, and it shows in Indianapolis.
All
So
right.
folks were like, oh, is there a chance that we could trade Carson Wentz? Because if, the Packers know that Aaron Rodgers is leaving, they want to get something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look, well, shit, who wouldn't throw Carson Wentz? Take this raggedy motherfucker, take this, take this shit over here, and and see what happens. But I don't really see that happening. I would love if that shit happen, but
Mm-hmm.
and I think Aaron Rodgers would be a nice fit with the Colts because they're ready to go. But um, I can't see it happen. I think honestly, we're probably locked in Carson Wentz at least for another year. Um, and they'll probably just see what it is for another year. I hope he doesn't break down again.
Speaking of locked in, it's not a great segue, but when you said locked in, it automatically made me think about Russell Westbrook. The the Lakers are locked into that damn nigga's contract.
Yeah, I mean, there's like because everybody was like, "Well, what do you think?" Can who would the Lakers trade him for? Like, y'all people are assuming that nobody's taking on that contract. Like,
That
not
contract is a lock, bro.
no way in hell. Like, I don't even know. I forget what it is. It's something ridiculous.
Yeah,
But
it's like when the it's a high ass number. I won't say it's the Kobe number, but it's in that realm of when you signed that deal with Kobe, when Kobe sat there and said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna go to Chicago if y'all don't sign this goddamn deal." When you signed that deal with Kobe, you locked yourself in with Kobe, like you locked yourself in to not be able to do anything else.
Yeah, but
and
the thing
we
with
saw how that ended. And
but,
then
but
you turn right around and do something similar with not LeBron, with Russell Westbrook.
well, so the thing with Kobe, everybody kind of knew when he signed that like this probably ain't worth it, but that's basically just like a lifetime achievement award, right? Like
Correct.
they
Yeah.
they just made the decision like, yeah, we know it's a shitty ass contract for us at the end of it, but it's Kobe, you know what I'm saying? He's a lifer. We'll just deal with it.
Right. Because
But
he was
shit,
dead serious about going to Chicago. So that was the other thing too.
right.
He was like, "Hey, I'm out, dudes. Like, you can call my bluff if you want, but you know."
You know
And
how
I could
Terry
see from their standpoint, we can't have this guy who is basically um, third on the list or fourth on the list right now in everybody's mind as an all-time Laker to just leave. And so I get it. It's like think about what he's done in the past, and he's Kobe Bryant, and let's just pay him and make him happy, and hope
so
we
check
can pick up some pieces.
Russell Westbrook's projected salary over the next this season and next season. He's making 44 million this year.
Oh fuck.
Next year he's going to be making 47 million.
$47 million for a dude who can't shoot.
What? Like that's crazy. That money is bananas, boy.
I mean,
Um,
good for him. I'm not knocking
yeah,
him. Get the
yeah.
money, bro. I'm not knocking that, but I'm just saying, like,
He to put this in further perspective, he's the highest paid Laker this year.
and and that's because I mean that's the guy LeBron wanted. So
That's your boy. That's your boy.
yeah, that's
But
the guy.
you
He
know,
put this team together. You know, this kind of reminds me of. Now I'm not calling Westbrook Chris Bruton. This kind of reminds me of when Jordan tried to strong arm the Bulls and sat there and was like, he really wanted Chris Bruton on the team. And he was like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm threatening to do it. And they was just like, look, you play. We manage the team. I don't give a shit, Michael, but you can't call these shots. Like they knew they had to rein in Michael Jordan somewhere along the line. Somebody got to sit there and tell LeBron, I get it, but you know, when you the Lakers organization, because if you look at it from the Lakers standpoint, okay, you got 17 titles. It ain't like you rushing to try to win a title. Like you're the standard.
right.
You're the, yeah, you're the standard. You're not playing catch up. You're not one of these like Cincinnati teams or Milwaukee team that ain't been to the finals in 40 years or something like that. You are the standard. So m- money wise and management wise, team wise, you know LeBron ain't gonna play forever. So why would you basically lock yourself like this? Like,
Yeah, but you know, this is what happens with LeBron teams though. They basically
oh, he's the
mortgage
Silver Surfer.
everything and they relinquish they relinquish everything
He
and
comes to the planet, sucks up all the resources.
he's the destroyer of worlds and shit. Um I mean,
He
that's what he
just,
does, and then he dips and leaves, you know, carnage wherever he leaves. But
yeah,
because he don't want to play with young players, he wants to play with vets. So he forces them to trade away their assets to bring in older, more experienced players.
right,
And then and he you know he ain't. I mean, he's got a bunch of business interests in L.A. So you know
right,
who knows. I mean, but I'm absolutely certain at this point he wants to play with Bronny, his son. He's made it all but clear that that's what he's kind of sticking around for is to have a couple years, I think, with his son.
okay,
Um, so you know, we'll see what happens. But I mean, I think the issue with Russell is this. I mean, he just doesn't. So he basically the teams he's played on basically he's kind of played in an environment where it's just like playground basketball, right? Where they're
hmm,
basically like just play hard, let's get up and down the floor, and let's just hoop, right?
right,
Now playing with the Lakers, he's forced to be a basketball player, and anybody who's played basketball knows the difference, right?
right,
There's a difference between playing playground and hooping, and then playing basketball, and having to be a little bit more cerebral about what you're doing, and a little more structured. In
yeah,
his game, he's basically a bull in a china shop, and now his athleticism is starting to fall off a little bit. He can still call on it in moments. You know
yeah,
that dunk he had on I think the cat from Utah,
hmm,
but you know he can't really do it all the time, and it's to the point now where it's a confidence issue. I think. I mean, last night they were playing Milwaukee, and there was a play where basically he was like, I think he was about 8 feet from the basket, and Giannis was right there, and Giannis just basically let him shoot it. He didn't even try to block it, and he shorted the shit about 8 feet from the rim with nobody even really putting a hand up.
Oh
Like,
yeah, that's a mental block.
yeah, and his free throws are taken, and you know how I know it's a mental block is his free throws are starting to fall off, and that's how you know it's affecting his game. So
Mhm.
they benched him in the whole fourth quarter, and I mean it's a clusterfuck over there. I mean I don't know, I guess you don't put anything past LeBron or AD, and maybe they can go on a run and just get in. But I mean right now I think they're like in the maybe the ninth slot, so they're squarely in the play-in shit.
Right.
They're three games below 500. I mean, they could easily, I guess, go on some sort of run, but I can't see them. They're certainly not going to make. They're not going to make a run to get home court advantage at this point. But they could make a run to get out of the plan, I think. But we'll see what happens there. It's NBA is getting interesting. The All Star games in Cleveland this year, so that'll be interesting. Cleveland, they made a bunch of trades recently. Pulled a boy from the Pacers, Levert.
Hmm.
Um, and then who else did they pull? They got Tristan. I think they got Tristan Thompson. Got
Back.
some other guy.
They got
No, they got Tristan Thompson, but the Pacers did. That's right.
okay.
Cleveland. I think they just got Levert, so they're gonna be a tough. It's gonna be interesting in the East. I mean, the Bulls are there. I mean, I'm amazed at the Bulls kind of treading water with all these injuries.
And
Shit's
still
bananas.
still
It's
right at 1 and 2,
just
back and
yeah,
forth.
hovering around there. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Just hovering, and that's really all you want from them at this point. I mean, because people like, oh, what trade are they going to make? Honestly, when they said that, because they just talked about a couple games ago with the Bulls. Billy Donovan said Patrick Williams they anticipate him to be back sometime at the end of March.
Right.
So he comes back and he starts to work his way in. Then we'll start getting Lonzo back and Caruso back and even Derek Jones back. I'm all right, honestly. I mean, I
Right.
don't. I mean, it might be nice to get some front court help if it doesn't cost you too much, but outside of that, like when you get those guys back, because people are like, "Oh, their defense is falling off." Well, their two best lockdown defenders aren't playing,
Aren't
and they
playing.
make
Yeah.
and the place where they're having the most trouble is on these pick and pops and these pick and rolls, and that's where Caruso and Lonzo will help you out. I mean, they're perimeter defenders, and candidly, there's two of the best perimeter defenders in the league. So that transforms your defense because it doesn't put you in stress situations everywhere else, right? So
Right.
that way, you don't have to. We don't put Zach on the best player or Demar on the best player because they're carrying the burden offensively as well. You know what I'm saying? So
So, so
we'll see what happens.
since we're on the topic of trades, you saw what they're trying to do in Philly
I don't
between
know if it's going to happen. I mean, I've heard that Harden. I mean,
Harden wants
Steve
out.
Nash has come. Yes, well, Steve Nash has said they're not trading. I mean, I don't know if that's just posturing or whatever. We'll find out tomorrow. But it seems like that would be. I'm assuming what you're talking about is the idea of Harden for Simmons. Um,
Yeah, supposedly the latest talk, probably around what 4 or 5 o'clock today, was that the two sides are talking heavily about that. Like they're actually trying to make that deal happen versus the original hearsay.
it makes sense. It makes sense, I think, for both teams. I think Simmons would actually be a really good fit for Brooklyn because he doesn't have to worry about scoring. He can do the things that he's strong at, and you still got Kyrie on away games,
And
and then you
and
got KD whenever he comes back.
and Brooklyn
Um,
wants a couple of, like they want another piece, which I believe that's fair. Because right now you're trading a guy who's playing for a guy who ain't played a lick.
but I
So
think some of that's strategic. I think all this, dealing with this mental shit is just a way for him not to play
right.
and force his trade. But um, yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, I think it's one of those trades that works for both teams perfectly. You mean
Yeah,
put
it's a
Harden over
win-win.
there, put
It's a win-win.
Harden over there with Philly. Question becomes like, can the both those guys stay healthy between Embiid and Harden? Um, but they got some other guys as well. So I mean, it would be interesting. The East is already deep as shit. Um,
Hmm.
Obviously, I don't as a Bulls fan, I don't want to see anybody else get better, but um,
Right.
it is what it is. But it's just fun to. I think what's going to be fun from a Bulls perspective is seeing Zach get into the playoffs and seeing what type of guy he is in the playoffs, right? And I'm not saying I'm one of those people that doesn't believe he's not going to be nice. I just think you tend to you get to highlight your skill set in the playoffs, and I think his game is situated perfectly for the playoffs. I mean, he can shoot the three, he can get to the rack. You can't foul him in the clutch because he can hit free throws. And you playing once you're playing a 7 game series, you start to get your rhythm a little bit better. I think he once he gets under those bright lights of that playoffs, I think people are going to start to appreciate him a little more. Because honestly, I think he should be an all-star starter. I think him and DeMar should have been backcourt starters, in my opinion, together. So, but it is what it is. They're both all stars, so that's all good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's been put this. It's a fun basketball time right now. I don't really want to talk about the Boilermakers because every time we talk about them, we fucking jinx
man,
that shit.
yeah, fuck it.
So we'll
we ain't
leave
gonna
that
jinx them.
alone. So it is what it is. We'll see
They
what
had a
happens.
good solid win against Illinois the other day. So
Yeah, it's a good game. That was a good win. I mean, I haven't seen Mackey like that. I don't think ever. Um, that energy in Mackey last night was fucking crazy. Yeah, I just haven't seen it like that. It's nuts.
Mackey is actually starting to become a spot. It is.
Mhm.
It's starting to become a spot. Like they
Right. Well, it has been for the past few years. It's just a place where it's going to be hard to win, and it elevates the team. So hold on one second. So apologize, y'all. I got the monitor on. This is dad life right here. But I had the monitor on, and my 1-year-old was doing something in his bed, making noises. So I didn't want that to show up on the episode. So y'all just have to deal with the awkward silence and everything else. But no, I mean, like, we'll see how the Boilermakers look. But yeah, that Mackey it's jumping. It's gonna be hard for people to win there. But we got some tough games coming up. They're playing Michigan tomorrow.
Yep.
Then I
That's
think they
that
got
makeup game, wasn't it? The Michigan.
yeah, that's what sucks. I mean, they're playing a lot of games in a short period of time. I think they were traveling today after playing Illinois last night late. Then they play Michigan at 9 o'clock tomorrow night. So we'll see what happens, man. I mean, they're trying to get a Big Ten championship tied with Illinois and Michigan State. And, I mean, I think they're just probably just gonna win out, honestly, in order to win this Big Ten championship. But at the end of the day, really, I mean, the Big Ten championship is important, but we really just want them to be playing well at the tournament time.
Right.
And what's nice is they won 6 games in a row, and I've always said that you know at some point in the season, if you're going to be a contending team, you've got to win 6 games in a row during your regular season to prove that you can win 6 in a row during the tournament. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what you got to do to win the chip. So uh, you got to prove that to you. And they've done that. They won 6 in a row. Hopefully they'll make a 7 tomorrow. We'll see what happens, but I'll leave it at that. I mean, go Boilers, but it's hard to tell. Big Ten is tough, especially road games. I think Juwan Howard will have them ready playing out there in Ann Arbor.
So there's it is a this month is a good sports month, sports entertainment month, and I say sports entertainment month for those wrestling fans out there. There's a lot of stuff moving. Like this is my little wrestling rant. I don't do too many of them every so often.
And here
But
we go.
yeah, here's my little wrestling rant. So right now, I mean, the way is the rumor mill is, and like I said, this is a rumor mill. This is not something that has been confirmed. So before people just start, oh, he said, the rumor mill is Vince McMahon is basically gearing up his company to sell, and he's got a couple of people on the line that he wants to try to sell it to. One of them being Disney, believe it or
Hmm.
not. He made a lot of moves and released a lot of talent, so that so his profit margins and everything, his revenue looks good. And it actually, believe it or not, the numbers came back, and COVID year and last year were the highest numbers in revenue for that organization. So what
Mm,
they decided to do is they flipped from, pro wrestling to the sports entertainment title, yada yada, to basically content. The WWE is like content driven. They provide you content, and whatever that means is, their little Peacock, whatever they got the deal with Peacock, and they used to have the WWE network. They provided, you know, shows on there and stuff like that, and you can go back and they have all the archives from all the other organizations that they purchased. They have all that footage or whatever. So they provide content. This month, with everything going on, um, for people who understand who Brock Lesnar is, Brock Lesnar he's a draw. He's money. It's like literally having Floyd show up and fight. It's to the point now where you don't have to have an opponent for Floyd. If you said Floyd was fighting, people will spend money. Same thing
mm,
works for Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar is just pure money. He comes back uh, to do his thing in this time period for the WWE, and the Royal Rumble happened, and now Ronda Rousey comes back. She's been gone 3 years. Ronda Rousey is still a draw, regardless of what you may think of her last couple of UFC fights or whatever, but she's a draw. And what Vince McMahon is good at is putting butts in seats for that type of matchup. He he knows what the drawing power is.
mm,
So right now there's a lot going on, and this is probably the best time for all that. I won't go into depth on what else is going on, but WrestleMania is coming up, and they're having WrestleMania in Dallas at Cowboys Stadium,
mm,
and the plan is it's 2 nights. Now they started this 2 night shit during COVID because obviously you wasn't gonna get
mm.
people in seats, so they provided two
Right.
nights of entertainment on the app and on streaming and on pay per view. So they want to do 2 nights in person at that stadium, and they want to fill it both nights. Now, if you think about this, that's a large ass. What's that? 150,000, 200,000 people in that stadium
Yeah. It's a
to
nice
fill.
amount. Yeah.
And so you're coming out of COVID and you're trying to fill that stadium 2 nights at 200 plus. If that happened, that man, that's money. That's money. No way around it. That's money. But you got to have the talent and the draw to hold 2 nights. So they're working on that because WrestleMania is in April. The idea was to get The Rock back for one of them because there's a storyline with his actual family that is still wrestling that would work for that, and it would be money. I don't think they get The Rock back. He's doing this movie, and they really want, because WrestleMania next year is in LA. They really wanted it for LA, and
Okay.
I don't think that's going to happen. They can't draw this shit out another year just because of The Rock. So they're going to pivot and try to get 2 nights of the draw. So like a lot of shit's going on. So you got basketball, you got college basketball gearing up for March Madness. You got All-Star game coming up. You got the Super Bowl on Sunday. You have this shit happening over there. If you like seeing Brock Lesnar and Ronda Rousey and all this, you got all this shit happening this month. And it's, man, put your head on the swivel, strap in, buckle up, enjoy yourself. Because, like I said,
Mm.
come next month, we got March Madness. We going into a lot of shit, and then next thing you know is NBA playoff time. So this is a good time for sports.
Yeah. It's a fun time, and then like you get into that time frame where what is it? Because usually there's a bunch of shit going on at the same time. So it'll be that's not till like probably next season. So it'll basically be fuck is usually going on. It's usually the sweet spot where I think it's basically you have you have baseball playoffs in October. NBA is usually going at the same time.
Right.
NFL's rolling too, and then I think college basketball's probably jumped off. Like there's a time frame where everything is jumping off at the same time. And you're like, oh, this is doesn't get any better than this. But yeah, we'll see what happens, man. Hopefully, the other thing is hopefully this. I just want this COVID shit to open up somewhat normal so we can start getting places, and for us, so we can start taking our boys some places. But we're planning some vacations just to hit some beach places up, just so we can get the fuck out of Dodge. But
Mm-hmm.
it'll be nice to get some back to normal, and it looks like the rates are falling. Cautiously optimistic, obviously, but um, I think Pfizer just opted for their emergency use authorization for under 5-year-olds to six
Okay.
month olds. So that'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But I'm not gonna make this a COVID rant, but just saying to generally say that looking forward to summertime opening up, smoking some cigars. Maybe we'll get to a place where we can finally record this fucking show live in the same
Right.
place
Right.
um,
That's
as
been
we
our goal since day
as
one.
as we intended to. But hey, by the time we get there, we'll be seasoned vets and we'll be able to kind of get this thing cracking for y'all. So yeah, hopefully, that's the goal. But people just need to we just need to collectively try to get our shit together. I see where folks are, as usual, preemptively and too early rescinding their mask mandates based off of just some minor good cases of reduction in the caseloads. But whatever. I'm tired of folks. Tired of dealing with folks. But you had mentioned this month, the sports and everything that's going on. Obviously, this is the shortest month of the year and happens to also be Black History Month. I typically don't make a habit of making a big deal about it being Black History Month just because I get irritated by the fact that we still approaching this shit like it's 1 month out of the year. But at the same time, you still want to utilize it, use it as a way to highlight, maybe springboard yourselves to the rest of the year. I thought one thing, kind of bringing sports and Black History Month together. I thought one thing that was interesting that popped up on the Purdue halftime report yesterday was this conversation about the two sisters from the Parker sisters from Purdue that helped integrate the residence halls up
Mm.
there at Purdue. And I didn't realize that recently, I guess they just renamed a couple of the residence halls after those two sisters. So
Oh,
that
which you know which ones or
that's what I'm trying to. I can't recall. I looked it up because when I saw the story, I was like, "Oh, it's some interesting shit." And I actually, I feel bad. I did not know the story. Right. So, and
probably
I'll send it to
Lauder.
you. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you here in a minute. I knew it. It wasn't.
Not gonna be Earhart. I know that. I know that
So
right there.
it's yeah. So Frida and Winifred Parker are the women's names, but in 1947 they helped to integrate the Purdue resident housing situation. So at that time in Lafayette, West Lafayette, as amongst everywhere else in the country, they were segregated housing, and they along with their father actually, who was a teacher, I think, at Crispus Attucks High School in Indianapolis, helped to kind of force the administration and the governor to integrate the university residence halls based on the fact that he was like, look, I pay taxes and it's a land grant institution. I want my girls to be able to take advantage of it rather than having to live off campus at the segregated housing. But I'll tell
Oh,
you, so
so
it's
he came out with that. I'm a Negro with money. You ain't gonna do this to me.
basically, I mean,
Not
and
my
you got to think,
girls.
but this is 1947, so this ain't. I mean, it ain't even like the 60s, right? 47, it's worse, right?
Right,
Uh,
right. You're still coming off the depression.
right. So I mean, it's still different, but um, so they renamed the Griffin Residence Hall buildings as Frida Parker Hall and Winifred Parker Hall.
Griffin.
I'm not sure. Those might be some new. Um,
Yeah, because they do have those new. Like
yeah.
if you ain't been back across the street from Earhart, where the gravel lot used to be,
There's a. I know. There's a.
yeah, there's residence halls there now. So maybe it's
Yeah.
those.
So, but I mean, either way, it's a good look. Good for Purdue to come around on that interesting story that these sisters helped integrate the housing situation out there. It's
Yeah.
good shit. But
Yeah.
so I mean, just Black History Month. So, I mean, what I guess what's your perspective? I mean, so I'll tell you what. I mean, one thing is kind of highlighted for me is come up, and I think we talked about this maybe the last episode we had for me and my wife. We noticed so for the month of February, the my son's day or both my son's daycare, my oldest son's in preschool, and they send us like a calendar every year with a curriculum basically and kind of what's coming up for that month, the different shit like it's cupcake day or it's cookie day and this month or whatever, all that type of shit. So
Right.
the the calendar that they sent us didn't have any mention of Black History Month. So now that's the first thing I saw. What the fuck? Like, and then they got black teachers there, and
Right.
yeah, got some black kids there. And I get it. I mean, at most these kids are 4 years old at that particular daycare, right? So I mean, it is what it is. But I feel like you do all the other bullshit throughout every other month. You should
Mm-hmm.
at least highlight within the calendar that it's Black History Month and be able to talk to these kids about some type of shit. So, needless to say, I got a call set up with these folks in the next few days.
Knew it was coming.
I told my wife, I said, well, I got a call up there now, right? And I got to set up a Zoom call. She was like, yeah, I know.
I knew it was coming. I was
Yeah,
like,
I'll be like,
three,
look,
two, one.
I'm not sure why y'all don't have this shit set up, and it is what it is at this point. But just so y'all know, if I'm gonna be here, and definitely if I'm gonna be paying my fucking money, I'm gonna need for there to be some sort of representation in the curriculum, so I don't got to deal with this bullshit. But and I don't know that it's intentional. I mean, I get the feeling like they may just be trying to manage watching all these fucking kids and not necessarily worried about it. But if you're
Right.
teaching these kids other things within the context of the preschool environment, you can incorporate some lessons that highlight of the Black experience. I mean, so of course, I'm supplementing the shit at home with books and shit.
Right.
And don't underestimate. So this is one of the things I when we first had our son, trying to find books that um, highlight Black boys, right? So finding representation in toddler books and
Mm-hmm.
young children books, because there's not a lot. I mean, you tend to see more. You're seeing more and more young Black girl stuff, but you don't see a lot of Black boy stuff. But long story short, I found some books for like Black History Month that highlight like Black inventors and just Black History Month in general. And people would say, well, he's 3. What the fuck are you worried about, man? Just let it kind of marinate. But you can't underestimate the impact of representation. 'Cause I'll tell you right now, as soon as I got the book this morning, he was looking at the cover of the book, and on the cover of the book, there's like a Black teacher, and there's like 3 kids sitting down. It's like an alphabet A to Z inventor book. There's like a black 2 Black boys and a Black girl sit down and listen to the teacher, and of course the teacher's brown skin. And first
Mm-hmm.
thing he said to me, he was like, "Oh, is that mommy on that book?" I was like,
Oh.
"No." I was like, "No, that's not mommy." But he said, "Is that me? And is that my brother?" Like he said his brother's name. I don't use the boy's name too much
Right.
on the show, but
Right.
I said no. I said it could be, but the point is, being able to see themselves in the stuff that they read, right?
Right.
Whereas, it's something I underestimated, I think, for other folks, especially like white kids who have no problem seeing images that look like themselves. But the idea that he can see something that looks like him or looks like his mother who has brown skin and he assumes that's his mom. And the fact that he knows the distinction, because what's interesting is we have another book, that book, Brown Bear. I don't know if you read that to your kids. It's
No.
supposedly it's a classic book, but everybody gets it. It's just it teaches about animals and associates like different colors, purple, yellow, all that type of shit. But at the end of the Brown Bear, because it basically goes like Brown Bear, what do you see? I see whatever the next animal is looking at me. And it keeps doing that over and over again. And then at the end, it goes through all of them. And at the end, it talks about I see children looking at me. And then it says I see a teacher looking at me. And of course, the teacher in the book is some white lady, right?
Right.
So I'm like, and I guess as a Black parent, I'm sensitive to these things. I'm like, of course, his teacher. I mean, it's Brown Bear, so old ass fucking book. I said, of course, his teacher would have to be white. So so that's what our son sees. And so what I can tell you right now, how I know he knows the difference is because it's not like he looks at that teacher on that Brown Bear, and says, "Oh, look, that's mommy." He doesn't say that in that book, but he immediately noticed that on the cover of this Black inventors book. Like, oh, is that mommy teaching? Because it's brown skinned lady that looks like
Right.
my mom. I just think the idea of representation is important. So I find myself in the context of Black History Month, it really is about resonating with how it impacts with my boys, and that's where I tend to see it more. And I find myself really focusing on some of those micro level issues more so than the macro level stuff because I get exhausted dealing with some of these uppity niggas and these black folks who are focused on shit that don't matter and they're too busy trying to integrate themselves into the white struggle and the white system and try to do
Right.
things that are convenient and comfortable and especially with me in the context of policing,
Right.
nobody's really willing to do the things that are necessary. But I mean,
I mean,
I
it's
mean, I'm a,
even just even it gets to go so far as to have the actual tough conversation. When those type of folks, those Negroes really get under my skin because we're just at the point of getting to a level of just having the tough conversation. We're not even at the point of here's what you do to fix it. Like we're not sitting there
right,
saying we need to have this shit fixed by tomorrow. Go.
right,
No, we're
right,
like we need to actually have an honest conversation with ourselves within our community, and that includes the police. That
yeah,
this shit's fucked up. But and then they're
right.
just like, oh, there you go, agitating. You assimilating some bitch.
But but you know what it is, Greg? It's so the debate, and we've talked about this before. It's just this notion that people have accepted and fallen into this mode, like, well, what do you want us to do? We need the police, so we'll just reform them, and we can make them better. We should, sure, of course, we can make them better. And when you really look at it, it, it's not a reformable system, right? I mean, it's not addressing the needs and the
Right,
issues that we need to address. But
right.
um,
I mean,
so I mean,
look at Minnesota right now.
right,
I
right.
mean, Minneapolis. It's like Minneapolis. You had a shot. Like unlike other
Well,
people, you had a shot.
well, the problem is, so what happened is the shit gets co-opted by folks who just fall in love with the idea of just saying abolish the police or get rid of them without understanding what that really means, right?
Right,
It's not, we have enough. There's enough investment in a law enforcement model to the point where you can't totally abandon it at this point without having something else in place, which means
correct.
it's not a overnight fix. It's going to have to be a transition,
Right.
meaning you're going to have to transition out of law enforcement, but it's a strategic thing done by oppositional forces by saying, okay, you want it this way, fuck it, we'll just get rid of police and see how you like it. Well, of
Yeah.
course, yeah, as soon as you create that vacuum, that's immediately going to create issues because you haven't figured out a way to transition yet. And
And you
it's a
and you stir up
but
fear. I was gonna say you
yeah,
stir up fear. Yeah.
yeah, because this is a more nuanced argument, right? What it requires is for police to continue to do the job that they're doing in a refined way, in a limited fashion, and be willing to do that job that way rather than terrorizing Black and Brown communities. And at the same time, reallocating those resources to the things that matter and giving people enough time for these things to resonate, make a difference, and then you can start to transition out of the traditional law enforcement model and eventually move to a place where maybe you just have an investigative detective type force versus a patrolling force that really does nothing to prevent crime.
Right.
But I mean, but it's just those type of conversations. I mean, what's interesting, because we're talking about since we're talking about Black History Month, the you talk and we're talking about um, the groups within the Black community that sometimes make it difficult to advance and really make significant changes. And I start to see it more and more as the Black, quote unquote, Black elite. It's no
Mm-hmm.
different than like the crack cocaine epidemic in the 80s and everything that happened during that time frame. And to be fair, I understand the fear of a lot of Black leaders back then because crack was so new and nobody knew what the fuck was going on. And you're like, what is this shit? And
Right.
like they basically let Reagan just push through their mandatory guidelines and minimums and sentencing stuff just to, because people were scared. Like, we don't know what this crack shit is. And what's funny is, I'm thinking about that. I just finished Snowfall. Do you watch Snowfall?
No, that's my next thing that I'm binging.
It's great. It's really good. But I mean, I knew it was good. I just never got a chance to watch it initially. I finished it, so I think it's premiering. The new season is premiering next week, maybe, or the week after.
Shit.
Um,
Okay, now I got a lot to catch. I was hoping you was gonna say this summer.
no, it's coming up. The 23rd is the premiere, the
Okay.
2-episode premiere. So it's in season 5. So there's 4 seasons.
Oh, damn it. Okay. Yeah.
You can finish it because it's addicting. So you'll
Okay.
start watching it. It's good. It's good.
Oh,
But it digs into a lot of this stuff. But it digs into the perspective, obviously, from the drug dealer perspective. And what's interesting about Snowfall, real quick tangent, and I'm not going to give anything away, is it deals with everything in the context of just a purely economic model. And I thought what was also interesting is how they address the CIA involvement of drugs. And oftentimes we talk about it within the context of the movement that is intentional as a way to intentionally subvert the civil rights movement and struggle. The show doesn't really approach it from that way. The show approaches it from perspective the CIA is basically using it to fund their wars in South America, basically, right?
okay.
And they don't really deal with it. And the unintended result was the effect it had on the. Well, I'm not even gonna say unintended result, but the result by design, and it becomes a negative impact on the Black community. Um,
Gotcha.
but the primary goal and objective was to fund the wars in South America and create, supposedly fund those agendas to combat communism down in South America. So
Okay.
it's a good show, great show. But back to the issue of the crack epidemic in the 80s and Reagan. What you find is you find Black elite, Black middle class, and upper middle class folks who are like, yeah, push through those severe sentencing guidelines because this shit is ravaging our communities. And I
Mm-hmm.
think what I find is it's just another situation where we jump the gun on something and we give into, like you just said earlier, fear without really assessing the situation. Maybe I'm not being fair. Maybe had I lived in the 80s and early 90s, I would have been like, nah, fuck that shit. We need to put these motherfuckers in jail because they're fucking predators. But I, I, I don't know that I would. I think I would have tried to approach it in a more nuanced and sophisticated way, like a lot of folks were doing in the 80s. There were people that were screaming like, this is a terrible idea. This isn't the fix, especially when the United States government is pumping money into the drug.
Right. So,
So it's. I think when we talk about Black History Month, I think we need to have more of these difficult conversations rather than just every day highlighting our new Black History Month figure. Like, oh, let's talk about George Washington Carver, or uh, or let's talk about Martin Luther King today again for the
right. I was
eighth
about to
millionth
say,
time.
as soon as you say Black History Month, the first thing white folks think is, okay, they're gonna talk about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and George Washington Carver and Booker T. Washington
Right,
and
Thurgood Marshall.
W.B. Du Bois and
Yeah,
Harriet Tubman. Like those are the first things that they're gonna think about, and that's
and
all
then
they have in their brain.
and they might
And
get right. We might get creative and talk about some other folks, but
yeah, that's what they come into the month with. They literally go, "It's January 31st. Oh God damn it! Here we go for another 28 days. We're gonna have to listen to how everybody had to struggle to get here. Like it's not." And it's not all white people because there's some allies. Like I said, allies, this is not for you. I don't want the allies to be sitting there
sure.
going, Jesus, he hates us. No, I don't.
But
I
the
don't.
allies know that, right? Like
Yeah.
the true allies and the folks I know that I call friends, I know that are listening, white
Yeah.
folks, they know exactly what's going on. Like I don't have to qualify everything I'm saying to them, but to them, they're like,
I know. Yeah.
I know him, I know exactly what he's saying, and I get it. Therefore, I'm not gonna be sitting here in my feelings about this shit. And
Right.
candidly, as a Black person, I'm tired of worrying about white folks' feelings. I don't have the time or energy to worry about white folks' feelings. You know, come to
Right.
my world where you gotta live as a Black man in this predominantly white country, and then you might get some sympathy from me. But candidly, I don't give a fuck. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, but it's just one of those things where we get to this month, and even on television, you could tell that whoever's writing the shows, and it's usually not a black showrunner, but you have a couple, so I'm not saying that you don't, but whoever's writing the show always has to figure out a way to throw a Martin Luther King quote in there, and you know, like it has it's completely out of context for whatever the fuck is going on in the TV show, but it's always either in the episode or as the episode goes off, then the Martin Luther King quote comes up at the end in the on the black
Right.
screen, and you're just like, okay, you're trying too hard, you're trying too hard, but okay, whatever. We just want to educate you, you know.
And meanwhile, this is the backdrop for Brian Flores' lawsuit against the NFL, in which basically he
Ooh.
that shit came out of nowhere. But I'm like, damn, he got receipts too. Um,
Yeah, see, he
like,
walked into the middle of the room and literally dropped the grenade. He just
he's
said,
like, oh, it's Black History Month. Okay, motherfucker. Like, I got something for you.
he was
Um,
Brother Claus. Like, he opened up that jacket and he
yeah,
was fully packed.
yeah, man. But he
Oh,
wasn't saying that we don't know. I mean, because now basically we just got two coaches now, Lovie Smith and because Lovie Smith just got hired by the Texans, which
really?
well, yeah. So he got named. So here's what's interesting is before the Brian Flores shit, I think they were looking at Josh McCown as their coach. Then the Brian Flores shit blew up, and then all of a sudden they reconsidered because Lovey was on the staff already as a defensive coordinator. So then they apparently they reconsidered and they decided to hire Lovey as the head coach. I think it's as a way to counteract Brian Flores' lawsuit.
Wait, they were going
Um,
to hire the quarterback?
yeah, I think that's the yeah. I mean, he's retired. I think so. I
Yeah, yeah,
think
yeah. He's retired. I'm just saying they were going to hire the quarterback to coach the Texans,
right.
and he drops this bomb. And okay, so somebody told me that, and like I said, hindsight is 2020. You can say this shit all you want because there's no way to fucking prove it. But somebody told me that before he dropped this bomb, he was on somebody's list, like in their top three. Like one team sat there and said he was in in our top three, and then now he's not. And so you could say that all you want. There's no way to prove that. I mean, unless you literally show all the paperwork saying that, hey, here's our top three list. So that's cute to say in retrospect, but there's no way to prove it. I think the Texans sat there and said, okay, we want to get ahead of this shit because there's about to be some shit. And it's not that Lovie Smith doesn't deserve it. So let's not go into that thing where it's like, well, they only gave it to Lovie Smith because they're trying to get ahead of this shit. No, Lovie Smith is a pro football head coach like
Sure. Yeah.
any other pro football head coach that had a decent stint and a bad stint somewhere. It's like every time you think about a coach, they really do recycle coaches because it depends on how long you coach a team. It depends on the ups and downs, the personnel in management. A lot of things go into coaching a professional football team. It's not as easy as you think. And to sit there and say, okay, well, Lovie Smith's later years with the Bears sucked so bad, he deserved to be fired, yada, yada, yada. It doesn't mean he doesn't deserve to get another shot at coaching somewhere else. So Lovie Smith is qualified to be a professional football head coach. It just so happened that Lovie Smith got the job during a time period where
Right.
everybody was on 10 about this because the stuff that Brian Flores said, like,
Yeah, the
yeah,
Giant shit, the text message from Bill Belichick shit, that really kind of highlighted the kind of the uh sham interview process, right? So for
right,
those of you who aren't sure about what's going on or aren't aware, um, apparently, so basically what happened was Brian Flores had an initial interview with the Giants. Supposedly had another scheduled second interview with the Giants, and then he got a text from Bill Belichick. And for those of you who know, Flores was an assistant on Bill Belichick's staff for New England.
right.
First of all, I think it was ridiculous that Brian Flores got fired from Miami because none of that shit was his fault. I think he's a great coach. I think it was a terrible decision to fire him, but clearly there were some other issues going on there in Miami. But you can talk about that too. But so long story short, Bill Belichick um, texts Brian Flores and say, "Hey, congratulations on the Giants job." Well, turns out that Flores hadn't had his second interview yet, and he didn't realize that Bill Belichick. He asked Bill Belichick in the text like, "Oh shit, do you know something I don't know?" And then I forget what the context was, but somehow Flores realized that he meant to probably text Brian Daboll, who is the coach they ended up hiring, I
Right.
think, for the Giants job. Um,
Yeah, he
and
basically asked him. He was like, "Coach, you got the right Brian?" Like,
Bill was like, "Oh, my bad, I got the wrong guy." And so basically, Bill Belichick was privy to some shit, and the fact that he knew they were going to make the decision before Flores was even going to have a second interview led Flores to believe that okay, all this shit was just basically a sham with them trying to pretend like they were complying with the Rooney Rule. So and he got receipts, and then there's a bunch of other stuff supposedly in there about Stephen Ross, the owner of the Dolphins, offering to pay him for losses for them to lose, incentives to lose, and then I know Hugh
Jackson.
Douglas, Hugh
Jackson.
Jackson,
Yeah.
basically confirmed kind of a similar situation when he was coaching the Browns. So I mean, and that's no surprise there, but this idea that I think what it does is there's a couple of issues there. The first is that in some of these situations, the supposed Rooney Rule stuff, they're doing the shit just for um, basically shits and giggles, and they're making the decisions already. It's not to say that if you got a guy in line that you just like, I mean, it is what it is. But the reason why there's a intentional rule to make sure that you at least interview candidates is similar to like affirmative action. You just got to get these folks in the room, and you'd be surprised what'll happen because these folks are qualified. And candidly, that's how Tomlin ended up getting that Steelers position because I don't think they were looking at Tomlin, but he got in there and just blew everybody's socks off. Like, oh, what the fuck? Like this guy is amazing.
Yeah,
Because I don't
but
think Tomlin when he interviewed I don't think he was.
well, he
Um,
was, because I mean the Rooney Rule is basically off of the Art Rooney. So, I mean,
right.
so it basically, so like, for people don't get it, it's not a rule of we need to uh, interview a minority candidate. Like, that's kind of been the narrative through the media lately, and through, it was literally designed for African Americans. It was saying, hey, you have to at least interview one African American. So what happened was, back when they started the Rooney Rule, they actually you had teams literally go, do we know any African Americans? Like, yeah, you got three of them that are defensive coordinators on your
Right.
staff right now. Like,
Right.
it forced them to actually stop and think. So, just like anything else, anything that you don't like, any rule you don't like, you now spend all your time figuring out how to skirt that rule. So now now they figured out how to skirt that rule. They
Right.
literally go interview the people that they want to interview, and then they set up a time with a black candidate. And they know damn well they're not going to hire this dude. They done already got the offer letter drafted up on Tuesday. They skirt and they say, well, we got to have interview one. They set up that interview for Thursday or Friday, knowing damn well they're not going to hire him. And then come Monday morning, they're like, Josh McCown's my guy. That's how they've been skirting it lately. And the rule was designed so that that should not be the case. So now that they're skirting it, and it's not working too well, people are like, well, just get rid of it. Obviously, it's not working. No, when something's not working, you tweak it. You don't
Mhm.
necessarily you don't necessarily have to get rid of it. It depends on what it is, but you don't necessarily have to get rid of it, because there are some good things that came from the Rooney Rule. So let's figure out a way to tweak it. But to give you some context on to why this is important, the NFL's been around 100 years, right? Um, Countless white head coaches, probably so many white head coaches, none of you listening to my voice could name them all.
Mhm.
There have been 24 black head coaches in the league, and that's including guys who are interim.
That's ever.
Ever. That doesn't make any sense.
And just for context, how many teams are there? 32.
There are
Uh,
32.
32 teams in the NFL. Over the course of the NFL's history, been
History
24 head coaches. So there's not enough over the course of the NFL's history
to
to
fill
count
every.
for every team in the NFL. in a league that is predominantly black.
70%. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and
Yeah.
that doesn't even get in. This doesn't even get into the historical prejudices that you've had to deal with in the NFL when it comes to the idea of like black quarterbacks, right? I mean, we
Right.
haven't even talked about that. I mean, this idea of whether or not I mean, I think we've debunked that issue, obviously, given the number of black quarterbacks we have in the league.
Right.
But still, it begs the question why we don't have more black coaches, considering the success we've seen with black coaches. I mean, Mike Tomlin being, the standard bearer for that, right? I mean, he's
Up,
yet to
up.
have a losing season ever,
Yep. Ever.
um, and
He's
he,
two-time, two-time, what is he? Two-time Super Bowl champ?
yeah, I think he's got two. So I mean, and he
No,
just
he's got one. Sorry. One-time Super Bowl champ. He went twice. He only
that's
won
right.
one of the, yeah, he won one
Because
of the two that he went. But still, yeah.
yeah, because Ben had two, but he had one with Cowher, right?
He had one with Cowher, one with Tomlin, and he went
Went
twice
to
with
another one.
Tomlin.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
So,
But
yeah. So it's amazing that it's 2022, and literally
talking about this
only had
bullshit.
24. We only had 24 head coaches. Like it,
Yeah,
like
but the problem is, let's call it what it is. Like the NFL is more of a
a good old
plantation
boys
based
club.
system than and it's a plantation based system more than any other sport. I mean, we know that based on how they treated the Colin Kaepernick shit.
Right.
Like, so we know that these owners are like, nah, fuck that. We're not about to let them run this shit, and this is
Right.
how we're gonna do this
It's my
from
money.
from the combine to the draft and kind of how it mirrors the buck system and the
Hmm.
slave block and all that type of shit.
Right.
Like it mirrors a lot of that shit. I mean, and don't get me wrong, like I know these guys are making a lot of money, but it doesn't change the fact of how they go about doing their business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
And
I
see,
get a lot of
you have to weigh their money against what their ownership is making. See, when people make that, uh, when people throw that argument up and like, oh, these guys are making a lot of money, they're making a lot of money for yo everyday ass.
Mhm.
But in comparison to what their ownership is making, you know, it'll show you some things. Like seriously, it'll show you some things. So if they're making a lot of money to you, their ownership is making hellified money. You best believe they making hellified money. That's how they
Mhm.
stay billionaires. I mean, the reality to it is because people go, well, the whole black ownership thing is because you have to really account for this. You Here's your Black history question or research that I want everybody to do. How many black billionaires are in the country? Because it's more than what you may think. I mean, the first three you think of are three athletes. Well, two athletes and one entertainment mogul. Like the first three people automatically think of is Oprah, Michael Jordan, and LeBron.
Mhm.
They don't think about Robert Smith. They don't think about like there's more black billionaires than what you think. Now, to be an
Mhm.
NFL owner, you have to get voted on by 26 out of the 32 owners. Like 26 of them have to vote you in and say yes. You also have to
Mhm.
have, I think, what is it, 40% of the team value up front. So that's your deposit.
Mhm.
So I mean, that's a lot of money for most of these teams. Even the teams you think are suck ass, trash ass teams still cost a lot of money.
Right.
So, that's a lot of money. There are some people that could do it,
Well,
and
I mean, so yeah, I mean, because you're
yeah,
talking about, so you were talking about the big money that's involved with these things, and a great book for this, if you haven't read it, is a book. I think it's a $40 million slave.
mm-hmm,
If people haven't had a chance to read that book, but they talk about this, and it talks about the notion of sports in general, how sports were initially introduced to black folks as a diversion from revolutionary acts on the plantation, as a way to distract.
right,
And over time, what this evolved into is this idea of basically separating um, young black elite young men or women from their community. So basically, what you do is you use sports to remove them from their community and their roots and their connections, by saying, okay, we're going to sign you with a sports agent. We're going to take you out to this predominantly white institution. You're going to go to college here, and then you're going to go to this professional sports team, and then we're going to tie your livelihood to performing this sports feat and for our entertainment. Which obviously there's an evolution, there's a level of sophistication to it that I think you're starting to see, at least in the NBA, you're seeing more of a player empowerment, and this is where you got to give somebody like LeBron credit. This idea that you're still they're seeing more control and more power to the athletes in the NBA. That being said, they're still under the control of these billion-dollar owners who ultimately kind of control what's going on, and they at the end of the day they're not going to let you step out of line too much. But it's an interesting book because basically, it takes you through, the literal introduction to sports under the literal plantation to now a figurative plantation operating within these sports. And don't get offended as an athlete in those particular leagues as if we're saying, okay, you a fucking slave. No, I get the economic benefit of being an athlete and the ability to be able to transform not only your family but your community over time. But you got to be willing to take some of those chances, and that's where ownership matters. When you hear somebody like LeBron talking about he wants to be an owner of this, or ultimately when you see someone like Michael Jordan being able to buy into a particular team and have control over it, or Dwayne Wade being one of the owners in for Utah Jazz, these guys are starting to parlay the money that they've made in these leagues. They're parlaying it into actual ownership. The problem is, I don't know that we don't have any majority ownership. So you got they got folks who are looking into it. Folks like, I know at one point Bob Johnson was looking into it, and I think, did you send me a
Bob? Yeah, Bob was a majority owner of when they were the
of
Bobcats.
of the Hornets? Okay.
Yeah, when they were the Bobcats, he was the majority owner, and I believe Jordan is the majority owner for the Hornets. Now, I don't think that's what it was when he first got in, but I think he currently is the majority owner for the Hornets. So that's still
Mike is he's a billion. He's a multi-billion-dollar guy now. So I mean,
right? Yeah,
he's got that money, but
yeah, because even in Washington, he only had like a was it 20% or a tenth of ownership or something in Washington when he first did the Wizards thing. So, but you're still looking at two guys. I mean, Bob Johnson gave up BET to try to get ownership in the NBA.
Sure.
I mean, like he basically that's what he. I mean, he put up that money. He sold BET and put up that money to be, a majority owner for the Bobcats. So, I mean, and that was what 20 years ago. At this point. So even though we're quote unquote everybody's so woke, cancel culture, yada 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 yada, we still can't get 2 or 3 black owners in the NBA. We'd have none in NFL, and quite frankly, I honestly don't see 26 owners voting to let a nigga in. Sorry.
Especially in the NFL. Like,
in
so,
the NFL,
and
not
that's
gonna happen.
And that's why I talk about the NFL, because when you talk about this idea of a plantation, that league really kind of reeks of that particular analogy, right? And that's a league that is even more impossible to break into from an ownership perspective, just based on the amount of money that you're dealing with and the folks who are trying to get involved. I mean, you see black folks. I mean, Magic Johnson and his group, they got in on the Dodgers. You see them being able to get in on baseball and basketball, but when it comes to football, they like, nah, fuck that shit. Because
they're comfortable. I mean, think about it. For them, it's 32 owners that sit there and have they quote unquote conferences and meetings and board meetings and stuff like that, and they're comfortable actually working and seeing and joking and laughing and playing with guys that resemble them.
Right.
I mean, that's what that is, because there's a sexism, there's misogyny to this as well. Like, you're not gonna see a sole majority white woman owner in the NFL either. Like, this is this is a good old boys club, like, by definition. And as far as they're concerned, that's how they want to keep it, because they don't want to have to sit there and tiptoe around the new black owner. Oh shit, what did I say wrong? Oh shit, what if he doesn't like this? Then he's going to think it's because of racism. We're going to vote this way and he's going to vote the other way. And then, like, they don't want that level of stress. This is stress to
Mm-hmm.
white folks. This is the type of stress that they do not want to have. Meanwhile, we live through actual real stress, like literally getting in the car, going to work. Will I die if I encounter a cop? But they don't want the stress of sitting here going, am I going to offend this black owner that we got? God damn it. So to avoid all of that, they're going to go as business as usual. So you can have all the money in the world. You can be Robert Smith. You can be Bob Johnson. You can be Michael Jordan. You can be Oprah Winfrey. You know, you can be LeBron James. You can be these people. And you could be Jay and Beyonce because together they're billionaires. So you can be all
And
these people. It doesn't
Jay's
have your
another.
money's not going to buy you into the NFL.
Jay is the one who's trying to. The word on the street is, so that was one of the big issues, is people felt like he sold Colin out, in order to be able to get a seat at the table to actually buy into one of these franchises. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that that was true necessarily. I think Jay at some point did try to pivot from, okay, we got the symbolic shit cracking. Let's see what we can do about getting some shit done. Um,
Right.
and let's keep it real. Jay saw an opportunity to make some money. If he could buy into an NFL franchise, he's always been about his cheddar. Like, I mean, he shit, motherfucker said in his lyrics, "I can't help the poor if I'm one of them." So, I mean, that's his mo. That's his approach. You'll like it or love it. That's what it is. But to his credit, I mean, he's forced his way into some circles that you know life has told you he shouldn't have been able to based on where he came from, but he's been able to hustle his way into it. And you're right, him coupled with his significant other, arguably the more financially powerful one,
Right.
uh, Beyonce, like they certainly would have the buying power in order to buy into a franchise. I mean, these franchises are going for what, multi-billion dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
the NFL is super lucrative right now. So you would be dumb to, as an NFL owner, to sell your franchise these days. Like that would be a terrible idea because they're worth so much. You can purchase them; they're going to continue to appreciate over time. But you're right, just this idea of even being able to get into the room and have that conversation. These owners ain't going for that shit. I mean,
No.
in the
No.
NBA, they'll hang Donald Sterling out to dry, but in the NFL, that shit ain't going down. It's just not how they. That's not how they function.
No. That's what I'm saying. Like you need 26 out of 32. Shit not happening. That shit's never happening unless this gotta be like, you know, until what happened. I mean, white folks really gotta like you. You gotta be that black person that they really gotta like. And young people, you don't understand this. But I'm gonna hip you to the little game here. Until he allegedly killed his wife, white folks loved OJ, loved him. Like literally, OJ could have walked into a white home in America and they would have let him in the door and watch and babysit their kid while they go to the store. They loved him. Unless you in that old school OJ level, nah, these white folks ain't letting you in. Sorry. Sorry. You
Right.
either got to force your way in, you got to do what Brian Flores is doing. You got to hold their feet to the fire and literally uh, basically shame them into letting you in. Other than that, not happening on their own. And I don't give a shit what Jerry Jones do. Jerry Jones can go out on the field and get his crippled ass down on one knee all he want with his team and whatever. But I bet you when that vote comes, Jerry Jones is gonna vote with the rest of his guys.
Yeah. So what's interesting is, and this is what did y'all know? Did you send this to me, or I maybe read it someplace, that Byron Allen is actually making a bid to purchase the Broncos?
Yeah,
Um,
I didn't send that to you now because
okay. Yeah. So so it must have come across my feed, but so Byron Allen actually, he says that he was encouraged supposedly by some NFL owners to make a play for a franchise. So the Broncos, everybody knows, I think, is they're looking for new ownership. So when you talk about an opportunity, those opportunities don't come up that often. I know that
mm-hmm,
the Peyton Manning is potentially trying to find a way to buy in somewhere, so a competing interest there as well. But supposedly, Byron Allen says that Robert Kraft was one of the folks who told him that he needed to take a good look at buying an NFL team. So, and to be fair, I mean, after all that shit with Kaepernick, Kraft has been really involved with some of this shit. Surprisingly, like I hate the Patriots, but I mean, he's been involved with that Meek Mill shit. I mean, he was involved. He's been involved with a bunch of kind of social justice thing. I mean, whether or not it's lip service or not, I mean, you can't argue with the fact that he's been involved with the shit, right?
I was
But
about to say the results are there. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, I kind of have to admit it's more than I can say I've seen from other NFL owners, right? Um, but and you got to take Byron Allen at his word. I mean, why would he say that if he hadn't actually been encouraged? So I mean,
And
who
Byron
knows? Maybe
Allen was trying to actually buy our media platform, like
right.
truly buy the media platform so that there is black representation in exactly the narrative that gets projected throughout. And
Mm-hmm.
I think folks are trying to slow him up on that and put obstacles in his way on that. But if he can do it, God
Yeah.
bless him. But he's also one of the ones that white folks they like
Well,
Byron
because I'm looking at the. I'm looking at the details. So the Broncos announced theirs franchise is up for sale on February 1st.
Allen. Okay,
So the owner Pat Bowlen had died, as you know. So
right.
Forbes values the Broncos at 3.75 billion. They expect the franchise to fetch more than a $4 billion asking price, which is a record for a U.S. sports team. That's crazy as hell.
So and so you would need roughly 2 billion up front, like that. You
Mm,
need to show that you just got that chilling.
well, he's got to have a group of folks that he's going in with.
Well, yeah,
Um,
but I'm saying like to even get to the table, you got to show your financial portfolio has to show
mm,
that you just got at least 2 billion just chilling, not
mm.
actually doing anything. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, because I mean that Byron Allen's net worth they're estimating somewhere between 400 and 450 million, which ain't chump change, but it's not enough to buy
Not
an
enough to
NFL
buy the
team at that rate. So
Broncos.
I mean, so based on that assessment, he's going to have to find somebody with deep pockets. So there's been talking about stuff like maybe Jeff Bezos and I think he's involved with um, perhaps Peyton Manning and John Elway as potential buyers of group.
hmm
So that's why you see these folks building consortiums basically of folks to purchase these teams because
Right.
everybody ain't got everybody ain't got 4 billion lying around to buy a franchise. I mean, if
No.
that's like Steve Ballmer for that owns the Clippers, he's got
Right.
money, right? Because he had some billion to just purchase this shit outright by himself
Oh yeah, that was
and
liquid.
be like,
Steve
fuck it, I'm
Steve
still
Ballmer
good.
said,
Like
"Do not take my pocket money."
he's like, well, how much is that shit? I'll buy that franchise. How much I want?
Oh shit.
Absolutely, I'll pay for that shit. So I mean, that's real money. But I mean,
Right.
the idea is you expect that shit to continue to appreciate as these TV contracts begin to become more and more lucrative and everything that's going on. So I mean, you buy it for 4 billion. I mean, my guess is in whatever time frame you keep, you're just gonna hold on to that shit as an
hmm
appreciating asset. Eventually, I mean, it's gonna be worth who knows how much. I mean, shit, if it appreciates even a little bit, it becomes worth, 6 billion after you purchased it before. I mean, 2 billion is a lot of fucking money
Right.
for it to get value on a team. That's some shit that you like, and you also got to have the money though to spend, right? That's why
Right.
this shit costs so much because you got to have the money to pay these contracts and all this other shit. This money that's floating around. You got to have enough money to pay fucking Russell Westbrook $47 million next year.
Right.
Uh,
And the NFL, unlike the NBA, the NFL, I mean, those fans, that's a sport like what I call like golf. You play golf enough, you spending some loot. And the NFL is a sport like if you really one of them type of fans where you got your season tickets, you spending some loot. So don't get it damn twisted. People go,
yeah, I mean,
well, what do these teams? Why do they want to buy these teams if they're not winning championships? Ain't got shit to do with that damn Super Bowl. It ain't got shit to do with that Super Bowl. I mean, the
but
Bears right now suck, but I'm
the
telling you
da-
right now, the McCaskey's still making a shit ton of goddamn money.
But what you see with a lot of these folks on these season tickets. I read an article talking about some. It highlighted some Colts fans that some it was a white couple. They got rid of their season tickets. You're seeing a lot more people giving up their season tickets because of the game day experience is just not the same.
Right.
And these days when you have high definition TVs at home and 70-inch curved LCD LED TVs,
OLEDs, yeah.
right? I mean, you just got it's just a different experience at home, and rather than paying $100 for parking and then going to the stadium, and from his perspective, he didn't like the fact that now it used to be more people they knew around them, but now he got people are selling their tickets, so people coming to that shit drunk as shit, and
Randos
stand
like me because I got to hook up.
standing up the whole time, and like it's just not the same experience. But
Right.
it is what it is. I mean, there's no need to be like belligerent, but I mean you can still go to the game and have a good time. But I kind of get the point. I mean, when you're assessing the cost of that shit, you kind of like, what the fuck is the point? I go watch this shit at home and be have a better experience, see more shit. I mean, because they have so many more cameras at the
Yeah.
games than they used to back in the day. I mean, you know that from your profession. Like it's
Right.
just a totally different game experience. There's cameras everywhere.
Cameras
Um,
everywhere. You got simulcast. Like you can literally do a picture in picture and watch the game, the standard broadcast game that everybody's accustomed to, while watching what they call the home team or the away team version of the game, depending on what you want to do. Hell,
mhm.
I mean, we watch it on the league pass for NBA. You know, when you turn on the league pass, you can watch the
uh,
Bulls from the
I'm
away
watching
team's
them.
version.
I'm watching it from the Bulls' perspective every time. Like every
But yeah, I'm
time.
just saying,
Yeah.
like the
Right.
options are there. Like
Right.
what I do sometimes is I go in and out of the game just so I could hear what the other announcing team is saying and shit. Like, so if the
Uh,
Bulls go on a run and
mhm.
and you have Stacey King going, these boys is doing their thing, they running
Right.
around. I turn and go to the other side. They were like, yeah. The Pacers just really can't. They can't really turn it on today. And you're like, no, you
Right.
getting your ass routed.
Right. Right. Right.
So but I mean that option is there. That option didn't used to be there back in the day. So there's so many damn options to watch a game. And, and at that point, yeah, save your money because you can get some pop secret in your own fucking microwave. I'm just saying, like you out there with $10 popcorn for what? For the belligerent rando in front of you that got
Right.
some tickets from his friend who got some
$8
tickets.
beer and shit. Like I can buy a 6-pack and just drink my tequila. I ain't gotta worry about navigating these fucking police when I leave the stadium.
Right,
You know?
right, right,
Like,
right. So yeah, I can see that. And then,
and
like I
them,
said, them shits ain't cheap either.
I was about to say them NFL tickets are not fucking cheap anymore. Like I remember, I used before the pandemic, I would go to a game a year just to kind of go.
Right.
But yeah, you ain't. I mean, if you taking, I mean, for somebody like me who eventually want to take both my boys and my wife, like I'm spending. I mean, easily I'm spending over a G
Yep.
just for the tickets, right? For
Yep.
decent tickets.
Yep. And that's one
And that's
game.
and that's just one game, and that's not even like sideline seats. That's
No,
maybe like
no.
it's like club level maybe. Um,
Off, off,
like,
off in the corner. That's not straight
right,
on hard camera. That's off in the
right.
corner shit.
So I gotta use little tricks now. Like so, what I was doing was I would go to the Colts preseason game, the fourth or third game it's kind of like a dry run of a actual game,
Hmm.
and I usually be like on a Saturday night, and I go to that game. Like I get a chance to check out the team, get the game experience. I'm not spending a bunch of money, and
Right.
just kind of chill out. But I mean, it ain't cheap these days. I mean, between the parking and if you try, I mean, we live in Columbus, so you
Hmm.
probably, if depending on who you like, you got to travel. If you like Pittsburgh, so you're gonna have to go to Pittsburgh, stay there overnight, pay whatever you got to pay for your hotel,
Right.
pay the money you got to pay for the game, and then you kicking it probably afterwards or during, and probably gonna have some nice drinks or some shit like that. So I mean,
Mm.
it's a different situation. I mean, it's cost prohibitive. People do it though. I mean, uh, they, I know people probably are working second and third jobs just to pay for their season tickets, probably. And then you also grandfathered in some situations. So
Right. I was about to say sometimes your grandfather in and you're not paying as much as the newbie, the rookie season ticket holder right now.
right,
That person is if you just started paying for season tickets, God bless you because I know your ass. That's a mortgage.
Yeah, I mean, and
That's the
I don't
funny
know how
part.
they were handling the pandemic. I mean, I don't know if they were giving people discounts or letting people opt out or exactly what's going on when they weren't
They were letting
having
people
people in the
opt out.
stands.
I know that in the pandemic, not every team, but certain
Uh,
teams were letting people opt out.
some teams are probably like, "Hey, you better keep paying this shit, or we're gonna find somebody else to come in and pay these real prices." Like,
Here you go. You about to lose these seats. I'm telling you right
right,
now.
and no sympathy whatsoever. But
Nah,
yeah, so I mean, back to the black ownership piece. It's just there's so many hurdles. Like, and what we're talking about is like substantial change, right? Like, it's
Mhm.
nice to see these athletes get these big contracts and continue to make more and more money. And one of the premises of that $40 million slave book was basically an idea that look, these athletes, the goal should be to flip all this money you're making into more lucrative opportunities, whether it be an ownership or some other um, avenue. And I can say that somebody like LeBron, he's trying to do that. I mean, he's got his production company, so he's producing a lot of movies that are certainly um, oriented to the black struggle. I mean, I think he and somebody else produced that Muhammad Ali documentary. I
Mhm.
don't know if you had a chance to watch that. They're doing a bunch of other stuff. I think there's something coming up that he's producing as well. So I mean, to his credit, he's using the influence that he has and the money that he has to accomplish some real things. So I mean, I'll tip my hat to him. And a lot of folks are starting to do that. Kevin Durant, I think, is doing a little bit of that as well. So these guys that are making real money are really starting to get it cracking. So hopefully we can kind of change the momentum on that particular issue moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, we've made some strides. Um, for some people, it's not moving fast enough.
Well, it's not. I mean, it's certainly not moving fast enough. You know, for me,
Right,
I wanted this shit yesterday, but
right,
it is what it is.
and so having said that though, uh, what we can't do is go backwards. We can't get complacent,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what
Sure,
we're starting to do,
it
and
feels
that's
like
what
that, right?
burns me up.
That's what it does feel like. We're kind of either stagnant or going backwards, right?
Yeah, and that's what burns me up because it's like, dude, all this work has been done to get to this level, and this new generation, not all, this new generation just is like, well, it ain't that bad, and we got some time, and you guys are just over exaggerating, and it's like, no, no, there's a level in which you need to like keep the ship afloat. There's a lot of work being done just to keep the ship afloat before actually pushing the ship forward, and you just don't know that that's happening, or you don't understand that that has to happen. So, hopefully, hopefully we get there. But like, I mean, it being Black History Month, there's a lot of things, a lot of situations. I know I mentioned off air the Dick Gregory documentary.
Mhm. Right.
I saw that this weekend, and you if you ain't learning something every day, then you might as well just go ahead and throw yourself in that box and get 6 feet under because there's so much information to learn. Like you can never get too old to stop learning. And I learned something off that documentary. Um,
Mhm.
like Dick Gregory, literally, I won't say blackballed himself, but Gregory was unapologetically for his principles and the advancement of black folks in this
Mhm.
country to actually be a healthier, to actually be financially responsible. Um, it's like when I saw there was clips, and Dick Gregory actually not he's from Chicago. Like we adopted him because he spent his adult years in Chicago.
Mhm.
He's born in St. Louis, I believe, but um, he spent majority of his life in Chicago before moving out to I believe what was it, Connecticut, or no, I'm sorry, Massachusetts. Um, Literally, he's sitting here doing comedy in Chicago in the 60s at the Playboy Club. literally doing comedy, like
Yeah.
stand up.
I saw that. I started watching after you hit me to it. I
Yeah,
haven't finished it, but I didn't I knew Dick Gregory, but I didn't really know his full background or story. So I mean, it's all kind of new to me from a historical perspective.
right.
But the idea that he basically got his initial break at the Playboy Club in Chicago in what 61,
Yeah,
where he was supposed to perform, and then they were like, "Nah, Hugh doesn't need you to perform tonight because there's this Southern delegation of businessmen who are in the crowd. They rented this place out. We don't know how that's going to go."
right.
And
You
and
don't need to be
and
here tonight.
and Dick was like, he was like, "Man, get the fuck out of my face. I'm about to go do this set." And killed it, right? And killed it in a fashion in which it was a commentary on race, right? So it
Right.
was this commentary on race to the point, but the white folk, he killed the room, like so much so that Hugh Hefner hired him on, and that's how he got his big lick. And I mean, he's making real money for
Yeah.
somebody during that time frame, and voluntarily gave that up and voluntarily allowed himself to be blackballed with respect to that money. That's kind of where I stopped. I haven't finished watching it,
Oh, wait till you. Yeah, it
but
gets good.
but I think what's interesting about Dick Gregory is, and perhaps it's just the idea that he was smoking cigarettes while he was doing a stand up. It made me think about Dave, right? So
Yeah, he's
Dave,
Dave's prototype. If you think
right? So it's basically, yeah, he's the foreshadowing of a guy like Dave who's coming in and giving that social and political commentary, and Chris Rock too as well. But and let's be honest. I thought after you sent that to me, I started thinking about the role of comedians within the context of the movement historically, and the role of comedy when it
hmm
comes to addressing social and political commentary, and how important that role has been historically, from Moms Mabley and Red
right.
Fox to
And
Richard
Richard.
Pryor, and
Yep.
then bringing it down to Chris Rock and Dave and all these other guys. The ability to use comedy as a kind of shining a light on the ills of the black struggle, right? Um,
Right.
and comedy has always been that, and comedy really is the last real vestige of being able to address those things honestly in a way that is palatable for folks to kind of entertain. So I mean, because people are kind of disarmed by the comedy of it, and comedians are so intellectually strong oftentimes. I mean, the idea of being funny alone requires a level of intellectualism that people underestimate, how difficult it is just to be funny and the wit you have to have. But it when you look at it within that context, it's no surprise that Dick Gregory was involved in um, uh, the circles he was involved with, how close he was to Medgar Evers,
hmm
how close he was to Martin Luther King.
And
Um,
he gave all that up. Like he literally would would turn down dates and reschedule dates. Like this is a guy who was getting $5,000 a week in the
mhm,
'60s to perform.
right, right,
Any other black person, uh, like we were talking about those uppity Negroes, any other uppity Negro would have been getting his money and said, "Damn the movement.
right, right.
This is for me and my family." Like you'll probably see it as you go further, but there's a section in it where he's giving money to the movement and he ain't
And
even
taken
paid
away
his
from his
mortgage.
kids' college
Yeah,
mortgage. I got to
yeah.
that part where it's talking
Okay,
about,
yeah.
like,
So
somebody had given him a check for his kids' college because he hadn't been able to do any shows. He had to cancel these shows and lose
yeah,
his contracts. I forget who had given him the contract or given him a check, and he realized there was somebody else in the movement, some other speaker or leader who needed it. He felt like the money it was better spent towards the movement than it was for his own child's education, which
right,
is an interesting kind of conversation. But the thing about Dick Gregory is he was always about how could he help the most people rather than a
right.
few people, right? That was his mentality, is how can I affect the most change rather than perhaps the more targeted change, right?
Right. Right.
Um,
So like I was sitting there, like I said, I learned so much. And like I said, I knew who he was prior to this, but I learned so much about him. Like I had no idea that that's, you know, where his life it took him. And
mhm.
and he was remarkable. The funny thing is, or I guess not so funny thing, but the irony to it is played the Funny Bone here, and I remember like he played the Funny Bone here like 5 months or so before he died, and I remember like for me, Dick Gregory's always been old. And I've just gotten accustomed to Dick Gregory just being alive. So
Sure.
I'm like, he was old when I was a kid. He's old now. Dick Gregory's going to be around. And I
Right.
remember he played the Funny Bone. It was like the summertime or something here, and or the springtime, and he played the Funny Bone. And I was like, oh, I'll catch him when he comes back. And next thing you know, a couple of months later, Dick Gregory died. And I was like, damn it, I should have went and saw Dick Gregory while I had the fucking chance.
Yeah, I did that. I actually went to go see him though. Paul Mooney's the guy that I went to go see before he passed. And Dave had, oh, has he passed?
Paul, yeah.
Yeah. So, because Dave, I think Dave brought Paul Mooney in here around his birthday or something like that. And
Okay.
so, but it was around the same time that he was having some issues with
Dementia.
some dementia issues.
Yeah.
So he literally did a set. He started a set, and then he started doing the same. He started the set over again, and he didn't realize he was starting it over. And then Dave graciously came out and kind of said, "Oh, we appreciate you," because you kind of see where it was going. So, but they
Right.
wanted to give him the chance to kind of do some of his set.
Right.
But I had seen Paul Mooney before that, but he's one of my favorites. So like, but when you talk about these comedians getting older and just the opportunity to see them before they pass, I think about Paul Mooney a lot too. But I never got a chance to see Dick Gregory ever in
Yeah.
person.
I literally blew my chance. It wasn't that I was busy or anything. I just got accustomed to him being around, and that showed me that you shouldn't get accustomed to it. But
Mm.
as far as Paul Mooney is concerned, like I literally, for my 10th wedding anniversary, we went out to California and
Mm.
stayed with some folks, and made it a nice little. I think we stayed out there a week, so made it in a nice week. Did a lot of sightseeing and all that other stuff. But on the way back home, we were in the airport, and literally Paul Mooney was catching a flight while we were catching a flight, and we wound up in the same terminal. And until both of us boarded, like it was my wife and I and Paul Mooney like talking in the goddamn terminal for what, half hour, 45 minutes, and Paul Mooney Paul Mooney's just stories after stories after stories,
Mm.
and I'm just sitting here soaking this up, and
Right.
we got a picture, but then it turned into a situation where I was like, I'm a professional, I do this for a living, so I never really fan out on anybody, and I find out that I don't have any captured proof of a lot of the things and a lot of the people I've met because I'm always
Mm.
working. And
Right.
this was one of those situations where after the picture, the more we talked, I was like, this is like not for a camera. Like this is
Mm.
us
Right.
communicating.
Just
So
an experience that
yeah,
you
it's
want to
an
just have
experience.
to pull from. Yeah.
Yeah. So we like I said, we just talked, and he started talking to other people, and there was this chick from Canada, young girl who didn't know who he was, and then this other guy, this other guy came up and was like, you know who Richard Pryor is? She was like, yeah, I heard of Richard Pryor. It's like, this is his number one man. This is his main writer. This is blah. Like the guy was geeking out, and Paul was just like, it's okay. It's okay. Everybody don't need to know, blah, blah, blah. It was like, he was
Mm.
so chill about it. And I remember he had on his little tracksuit trying to
Right.
catch that early flight. you know?
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I
Not.
didn't see
Yeah.
Paul do stand up on stage, but I got to actually meet and talk to Paul Mooney. So that's like a great experience for me.
Yeah, I mean, because Paul was exclusively a commenter on race. Like that's absolutely what he dealt with on a regular basis. It was his primary focus of his comedy.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's the best part of like one of my favorite movies. Y'all just don't understand. I could sit there and watch this movie like 10 times out of 10. Bamboozled. I will watch Bamboozled all day long. And Paul Mooney, he's one of my favorite parts about Bamboozled. so that
no doubt,
that is.
no
So
doubt. But I mean,
yeah.
but as far as just Black History Month. It's always an interesting month. I find it interesting that Black History Month has Super Bowl, the All Star Game, and Valentine's Day. I'm like, got all these distractions from Black
I was
History.
about to say it's starting to increase in distractions. It's like, okay, they still talking about Black history. Okay, put the
All right,
Super Bowl in it.
add another one, and another one,
Hey, the
and another.
Olympics. Put that shit in there too.
Right, the Winter Olympics. Uh, Nobody watches this shit anyway.
Right.
Speaking so, but hey, look, I haven't found myself in the mode of doing like I know a lot of folks do a Black History fact every day and shit. You probably won't see that on the All Out of Fucks page. Fuck it, we are Black History, motherfucker. So like,
All day, every day.
sometimes I find myself intentionally not doing shit during Black History Month out of spite, and then doing it every other month all the time just cause. But speaking of, before we kind of, I know we're putting a close on this shit.
Right.
I guess we can talk about it at the end here. Speaking of Valentine's Day, do you do anything special at this point for Valentine's Day?
Man, that's just so damn close to the damn Super Bowl and shit. Like,
Valentine's Day is always on All Star Weekend, like,
yeah. And so if you
which
ain't
is
got your
fucked
stuff,
up. By
yeah,
the way,
if you ain't
like,
got it locked up now, you ain't done too.
why? Like, why is that? Who came up with that? Who was like, let's have the All Star game on Valentine's Day weekend? Like, dude. And I understand. Like, I can see now, when you're married, you may not necessarily be as engaged with the Valentine's Day bullshit, but there's still a level of engagement you have to have, and kind of just pay attention a little bit. I mean, obviously, for the assholes who always come in, oh, every day is Valentine's Day in my marriage, and shouldn't have to celebrate.
Fuck
Man, shut
you.
shut the fuck up, motherfucker. Like, yes, we get it. Like, you value your spouse every day. Everybody does, motherfucker. Least you can do is you can participate, motherfucker. But
Right.
if your wife don't like the shit, fuck it, then don't participate. But if she wants some shit every now and then, fuck it. I mean, ain't nothing wrong with participating in the bullshit. We all know it's a commercially generated holiday. It ain't no real reason behind it other than the commercial shit. But fuck it, it's no different than the other bullshit holiday. Y'all out here drinking margaritas on Cinco de Mayo, not knowing what the fucking meaning of the shit really is. So,
They don't even know it's the 5th of May.
right. Well, what day is that? What day is Cinco de Mayo?
What day is Cinco de Mayo this year? You'd be like, God damn it.
Motherfucker, it's on Cinco, bitch.
Oh shit. Oh goddamn. No,
But
but yeah. Like I said, I haven't like I gotta get this is what I do. All my daughters and now my granddaughters included, I get them all Valentine's Day gifts. That way, as they get older, they're not gonna get tricked by the okie doke. It ain't gonna be no damn random nigga just giving them a bear and they lose their mind about it and shit like that. They're gonna be like, you gotta step your game up. My daddy been giving me bears since I've been born. Like, so they understand that they look forward to Valentine's Day because I give them a gift, and then usually the card is something that is inspirational. So they have those inspirational Valentine's Day cards for children and for daughters and stuff. So I give them an inspirational card saying that hey, you are of value and stuff like that. So um, they just wait for that and they wait for their candy and their whatever stuffed animal. So I got a lot of I got a lot of girls, so I'm gonna be broke. So every year Valentine's Day is about the same as Christmas for me. This shit costs money.
fortunately, I got boys, so shit. That's on my wife. She can exchange Valentine's Day shit with her sons. I ain't doing shit for them
Yeah.
boys on
You
Valentine's
lucky to
Day.
have boys. Like I got all these girls that I gotta sit here and take care of. So I'm gonna try to get that done and before the rush, because people
Uh,
like to be late with shit and rush, and next thing you know, the only cards left is cards you cannot give. So you're like,
right,
all right, time to make a card. How about that?
right.
So
I'm a
um,
so as far as card giving, I'm a big mahogany person. Like, I'm pretty. I pay attention to the card that I give. I don't. A lot of people just buy a fuck card and just call it a day.
right.
My wife says all the time she don't really give a fuck. She just give cards, but like I do pay attention to the card I give. So my shit, she's always like, "Where the fuck you finding these cards at?" I'm like, because I be looking for these motherfuckers. Like,
Right.
and I always get a mahogany. the Mahogany series of Hallmark cards.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting them joints or whatever the correlating line is, and with the American Greetings brand or whatever it is. I'm
Right.
finding the black line.
Oh
Absolutely,
yeah.
100%.
Oh yeah.
Um,
And them jokers ain't cheap. Good God Almighty.
no, they're not. They're not. But even during the pandemic when nobody was going anywhere, I would order them bitches off of Amazon. My
Amazon.
wife she'd be like, "Where the fuck are you getting cars from during the pandemic?" I'm like, "I guess I just love you more than you love me. More, I'm just more committed." She's like, "Whatever." Like she gave me my shit in the Amazon box that it came in.
Here you go, nigga.
She like, you ain't even getting the one of these million gift bags we got in the basement. I ain't even walking down there for that shit. Here you go,
Right.
motherfucker. Just open
It's
your
one
bubble.
strip of wrapping paper on it and it say Merry Christmas.
Nah, it's just bubble wrap around this bitch. I'm about to give her Valentine's gift the same way. Like, here's this box. Enjoy.
Happy Valentine's Day. Here's your box. I'm
So
about to
I'm
go
not
to
gonna.
All-Star Weekend. No.
Right. I see you when I see you. Holla.
But no, seriously, like it is what it is. It's gonna be a interesting. Like I said, this week coming up, starting with Super Bowl, because we do the whole Super Bowl thing. We do the whole spread. We have candy, cookies, pizza. We have wings. We have the whole spread for a bunch of folks out of this whole household. Maybe two people know what's actually going on, but we have the whole spread and everybody just enjoy it. So we'll
It's
do
just
that,
us.
and we'll roll into Valentine's Day, and next thing you know, we'll roll into All-Star Weekend. I guess I'm kind of hype about All-Star Weekend. I want to see what the dunk contest is going to be.
Zach is signed up for the 3-point contest.
Yeah, he's signed up for the 3-point contest. I always look at the All-Star Weekend differently. As I got older, as a child and as a teenager, you watched All-Star Weekend for your favorite player. As I got older, I realized that All-Star Weekend is a bunch of debauchery for comedians, actors, and athletes from other pro sports. And if you pay attention to the cameras, the shots that they take, they let you know what's going on. And
Some
sometimes,
folks is getting it in up there like that. That's why to this day, when the All-Star game in Vegas still has stories, like they still talk about the NBA All-Star game when it was in Vegas.
see,
You talk about debauchery. That was the poster child for like there was some wild shit going on in Vegas for NBA weekend.
see,
Um, fucking crazy. Like they still talk about it. You go out there and you talk to the taxi drivers and the Uber folks who might have been taxi drivers. They still talk about the stories from
right,
All Star Weekend out there in Vegas. Like fucking bananas. I mean,
yeah,
because it's Vegas, and then you add in the ridiculousness of the NBA All Star crowd that comes in. It's and let's fuck it. This is all out of fucks podcast. We're not gonna sugarcoat it. All Star Weekend is super fucking black. Okay,
yep.
let's call it what it is. It's super black. It's maybe it's a watered down Freaknik. Maybe.
I
Uh,
would I would I
like
would go as so far as to say that it is a watered down freak dick at that much. Like
people,
it's
some young folks are looking up Freak. What the fuck is that? Like Freaknik is some shit that y'all wouldn't even believe actually existed. Um,
yeah, y'all think y'all doing some shit.
right.
You have
Like
no idea.
no idea.
you
Like, and this
you
is this is before like. I mean, can you imagine if they had fucking phones with cameras back then? I mean, people had camcorders back then. They was just recording shit on camcorders. Can't
People had
imagine.
camcorders and literally film that you had to process. So we went to Freaknik one year. People don't like film the process. Yeah. So what you would do is you would take your camera, take all your pictures, and you would take it to a store where they would process the film and call you and say your pictures are ready. And you come back and you pick it up.
Can you
So
imagine?
somebody had to
Can you
develop
imagine?
that shit.
I was about to say, can you imagine the person that's developing all these Freaknik pictures? Like, what the fuck is going on? Like,
Yeah.
like all the shit that y'all snapping selfies about right now, motherfuckers had to intentionally pull out some little yellow and black disposable camera if they didn't have the money for a little small Canon camera, digital camera. No, not even a digital,
Yeah,
but
it
just
wasn't
a
even
regular
digital
camera.
then.
Right.
Yeah.
So and snapping and snapping the shit, you don't even know if you got a good picture. Like you just snapping away, just assuming you got some shit and trying to see when you get it back how many of the pictures are actually any good.
Yeah, so you literally just guessed all your shots and just hope like, oh well, that was a roll of 24, so hopefully I got something good. Hopefully I
Right.
got something good. We
Motherfuckers are
literally
not.
came back and we took all our shit to Discount Den. We took our shit to Discount Den and was like, all right, who gonna go pick it up?
Yeah.
Who gonna be the one to go pick this shit up? Cause ain't
How
gonna
the
be
shit used to
me.
be, man. That's how the
Yeah.
shit used to be. Like people couldn't even imagine that shit now with the cell phones we have. Like that, you weren't able, you couldn't take pictures with your phone. What the fuck?
Right. What do you mean
Um,
develop? Develop camera footage? What?
but nah, man, shit. But real talk, yeah, we got some shit coming up. We apologize for not having a show for y'all last week. We just had a bunch of shit going on work wise and personally, and just had to take a mandatory break just to kind of deal with life shit and just get everything together. But we back at it, and we're gonna keep giving y'all the content, and hopefully, like we said, this shit cleans up and eases up as far as COVID, and we can get back to what it is we wanted to do. But I'm good, man. Go ahead and take us on out of here. I don't have a what the fuck this week. I'll have one for y'all next week. I don't know if you got one.
Yeah, I
Unless
got a
you.
what the fuck.
All
And
right.
it's you know, so all right, we'll put it up, but basically it's about Bob Saget. And before we get before y'all start going, oh shit, what they say about Bob Saget now? He done touched some more kids. No, 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 no. It's nothing like that. It's his cause of death. They actually came out with his cause of death. And apparently Bob Saget hit his head and probably thought nothing of it and he died. Like he hit his head, probably sat there and was like, ow, whatever. And then he went to bed and he died from the injuries of, so he must have hit his head hard. And
Right.
you know how they say you get a concussion, don't go to sleep.
Don't go to sleep. Yeah.
Yeah. It must have been something on that level, but what the fuck, man? Literally, this is how this guy dies. He bumps his head somewhere and didn't know he had a concussion and went to sleep and died. So
Yeah.
that's my what the fuck, because
I gotta be honest with you, man. Like I don't have too much investment in Bob Saget. I don't like. I don't feel one particular way, one way or the other. I mean, it's always sad when somebody passes, but beyond just that basic, fundamental human feeling for another human being, I,
right.
I ain't, like, all right, all
Yeah,
right,
it's more like the situation to me.
all right,
Like that, like what
okay,
the fuck? This is it. I was
right,
waiting. I was
right.
waiting to hear that he was coked up. Like something.
Nah, just a basic death. But
basic, basic
speak,
bump your head.
speaking of coke, go ahead and watch that snowfall.
Yeah, I definitely am. I
Check
definitely am.
that shit out. Check that shit out because we'll speaking of shows, check that out. Check out what else is there? Fuck my what was I just about to oh the book of Boba Fett.
Okay. Okay.
That shit took an interesting turn. I thought the shit was gonna be boring as fuck because who really gives a fuck about Boba Fett? But interestingly enough, it takes a turn in episode 5, 6. You're like, oh, this shit just got real interesting.
Okay. Okay.
Like
Okay. I'm done.
so, because before that, it's tolerable, but it's not something you feel like you don't find yourself like, oh, I gotta see it every week.
Right.
But
It's a
so
slow burn.
yeah, check that. Then Obi-Wan, that series is coming out in May.
Okay.
That's supposed to take place after. It's basically 10 years after the Revenge of the Sith. So
Okay.
it's like what happened between that time frame with Obi-Wan and Darth Vader and all that other shit. But some shit coming out, man. Some good series, but I definitely recommend that Snowfall. I mean, I knew it was good, but and people have been saying it's good for a while, but for whatever reason, I had just never gotten a chance to really dig into it. But I just went
Okay.
ahead and just kind of binged it over a course of some weeks. Um, and
I
shit's
got to
dope
do it
as
in some
fuck.
days. So I
You
guess I'll
you might be
start
able to get it
tonight.
done. You ain't got kids you looking at. You can get this shit done.
Yeah.
Without kids, this shit is easy. Like you can just binge and shit. I mean, you gotta work, but you
Yeah.
can still get that shit done.
Yeah, I'll start tonight. It's kind of like the way I binged and got caught up with Power. You told me it was like get caught up, and next thing you know, about 6 hours later,
Yeah.
I'm like, hey.
Speaking of Power, the season finale. Did you check out Power and Force with Tommy?
No, I haven't started. I
Have you
need to
seen
start.
the season finale
No.
of the Ghost
Oh,
joint?
of Ghost, yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've
Yeah, that
seen the
shit.
season finale of that. So
They did that thing. We're not gonna ruin that one because people probably may not have seen that yet. But
right,
check that
not
shit
ruin
out.
that for you, but yeah,
But,
I'm gonna do
but
Snowfall.
yeah, see that shit. Check it out. Holla at me. But hey, go ahead and take us on out of here and let them know what they need to know. Greg.
As always, subscribe. We are the All Out of Fucks podcast, and guess what? We on Apple, we on Spotify, we on SoundCloud, we on Stitcher, we on Lips, and we on Instagram, we on Twitter, we're on Audible, and select episodes are on YouTube, and we all out of fucks.
We out this joint. We gone. We'll holla.